Hello friends, my name is Dr. Pooja Tiwari. I am from ABES Engineering College, Ghaziabad. Today we are going to discuss employee relations and labor laws. The topic that we are going to discuss today is importance and introduction of employee relations. Industrial relation or employment relations is the multidisciplinary academic field that studies the employment relationship that is between two parties, employer and employee. So, it talks about two things, employer and employees. These are the two areas. So, that is, this is a complex interrelations between employers and employees, labor, trade unions, employer organization and the state. In present scenario, the newer name is employment relations is increasingly taking precedence because industrial relations is often seen to have relatively narrow connotations. In this also we can see employee relations is historically known as industrial relations, which talks about four things: contractual, emotional, physical and practical relationship between employers and employee. So, nevertheless, industrial relation has frequently been connected with employment relationship in the broadest sense, including industrial employment relationships. This is sometimes seen as paralleling a trend in the separate but related discipline of human resource management. So, here we can see the original of industrial relation emerged from industrial revolution and the creation of free market. This is what we need to understand. It is large and unified movements of workers. So, the resulting tension that escalated and created a urgent need for the forces that could relate or regulate the relationship. While some scholars regard or treat industrial employment relations as synonyms with employee relations and labor relations. This is controversial because of the narrower focus of employee labor relations, that is employee or labor from the perspective of employers, managers and or officials. So, in addition, employee relation is often perceived as dealing only with non-unionized workers, whereas labor relations is seen as dealing with organized labor. Okay, I hope you are able to understand, that is unionized workers. So, this is unionized and non-unionized workers. So, some academic universities, other institutions regard human resource management as synonyms with one or more the above disciplines. Moving further, if we see the introduction of employee relations, so industrial relation may be defined as two main parties are coming into the scenario. Again, employees, although there is a collective agreement between employees and employers. So, industrial relations may be defined as the relations and interaction in the industry, particularly, understand this word, in the industry particularly, between the labor and the management, between the employers and the employees, labor and the management, as a result of their composite attitude and approach in regard to the management of the affair of industry for the betterment of not only the management and the workers, but also the entire industry. So, with which we have to understand the entire industry betterment will in turn lead towards the betterment of the economy as a whole. So, the term industrial relation explains the relationship between employers and employees, those acting as secondary parties on their behalf. Here we can see management or management, it can be employer and employer, employer and employee, employee and employee. So, this can be further bifurcated. Here you can see organization and trade unions, fine. So, employer association and trade unions, and those providing a third party role in employment matters, that is state agency and European Union institutions. So, government play a crucial role in regulating the relationship between employer and employee. So, industrial relations is the relation in the industry created by the diverse and complex attitudes and approaches of both management on one side, okay, and workers in connection with the management of the industry on the other hand. So, the term industrial relation comprises industry and relations. Industry means any productive activity. Now, understand the meaning of industry. What is industry? Industry means any productive activity in which individual is engaged. Fine, individual is engaged. So, individual engaged, it includes primary activities like, for example, agriculture, fisheries, plantation, forestry, horticulture, mining, etc. So, there are many examples that we can take. Secondary activities like manufacturing, construction, trade and transport, commerce, banking, communication, etc. So, if we talk economically, if we talk about the economically, industry means the secondary sector where the factor of production, that is, there are 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital and enterprise. So, you need to understand there are 4 factors: land, labor, capital and enterprise, and 4 M's: men, material, money and machines. So, these are gainfully employed for the purpose of production and where a business organization exists. So, I hope you are able to understand the meaning of industry in this. What is industrial relation? Fine. What kind of relationship arises? That means here we have to understand the relationship arises out of employment. So, there are different authors who have defined the term industrial relation in somewhat different way. So, there are so many different ways. So, if we go back, if we see, the following points emerge from the analysis of above definitions. If we go through all the 4 definitions that right now we have discussed, there are certain things that we need to understand. We can emerge, there are certain points that are emerging. The first point is industrial relations are the relations which are the outcomes of the employment relationship. Here you can see it is the outcome of employment relationship. First thing, in an industrial enterprise, it is thus employer-employee relationship in an industry. So, there are 2 parties are employer and workmen are necessary, which such relationship cannot exist, it is the industry. So, in industry we have 2 parties which are working, and because of which the industry is working, these 2 parties are employer and employee. Second point which emerges out of it is industrial relations is the relationship in the industry created by the diverse set of people. Just now we have discussed, we have a diverse set of people. There are diverse set of people who have complex attitude, their approaches are complex, diverse in nature, and they are management and workers. Here you can see workers are there, fine, management is there, employers are there, employer associations are there, trade unions are there. So, there are various things. So, attitude in this case refers to the mental state of a person. Approach can be the external expression of such an attitude. So, attitudes are always not obvious, obviously, and the individual himself may not always be fully conscious of the attitude. So, we need to understand that industrial relationship is emerging out of the employment relationship, about the regulation of employment. So, government, what is the role of government in this particular case? The role of government in this particular case is to regulate the relationship between employer and employee, is to intervene wherever it is required between employer and employee. If we talk about the attitude, I was talking about the complex attitude. Attitude is the mental state of the individual which prepares him to take a particular approach or make him behave in a particular manner. So, here we have attitude of 2 people, employer and employee, attitude of both, fine, which influences each other. Obviously, the employer attitude and the employee attitude, it influences each other, fine, and it determines, which is almost determining the natural relationship between these 2. Coming to a third point, this relationship emphasizes on the process of accommodation whereby both the parties develop skills and methods of adjusting to and cooperating with each other. What are the various skill sets that they are developing, how, in what way they are cooperating, that is the third point that emerges out of the analysis of these definitions that we have gone through. Fourth point, industrial relation is not a simple relationship between the two parties, but it is a set of functional interdependence involving a number of factors. There are number of factors which are involved. If we have seen in the previous slide, there are number of factors which are coming into the scenario. Fine. What are the different factors? It can be a historical, let us say it is a historical factor, it can be an economical factor, it can be a social factor, psychological, demographic, technological, occupational, legal and others. So, there are many factors which are actually influencing. So, it therefore requires an interdisciplinary approach for its study. So, it is not confined to one particular discipline, it is an interdisciplinary approach. In this context, industrial relations are the relations and interaction between management and workers, and as a result of their composite attitude and approaches. Coming to a fifth point, what we can understand is every industrial relation creates a complex of rules and regulations governing the workplace. Just now I have told you we have to understand how the workplace is governed. So, there is a complex of rules and regulations which is governing what sort of activities, what sort of responsibilities that we have to perform. So, the work community with the main purpose of maintaining harmonious relations between the management and the worker by solving their problems through the process of collective bargaining. So, what we are doing, we are coming together, both the parties are making associations, they are not only making associations, they are going for a collective bargaining, there is a mutual agreement between these parties. Coming to our next point, I told you the third party is the government. The government state also regulate the industrial relations in the country. It evolves, influences, shapes industrial relations through laws, rules, agreements, award of the courts and emphasis on the usages of customs, traditions, implementation of its policies, very important, whatever laws that they are making, formulating, whether these laws are implemented in a right way or not, and interference through executive and judicial machinery. That is something very important, how they interfere by the help of judicial machinery, how they ensure that whatever laws that they have formulated are being implemented in a right way or not. So, industrial relations may thus be defined as the relations and the interaction in the industry, particularly between the labor and the management as a result of their composite attitudes and approaches in regard of the affairs of the industry. Moving further, if after analyzing the definition, we can see we have different parties to employee relations. What are the different parties? Just now we have discussed, the first is employees, because the industry is what? Industry is a composition of employees and employer. So, industry is a composition of two things. How industry works? The industry works when these two parties they come together, employees and employer. When the employees they make their association, they make their union, that particular thing is known as employee association, which is also known as trade union, labor union. So, there are many names which is given to employee association. It can be trade union, it can be labor union, it can be employee association. Fine. So, that there are many names. So, to understand the concept of administration, we should know that who all are responsible for developing cordial relationship in the organization. So, these are the parties which are actually responsible. So, the different persons holding distinct position in the organization and the external or the internal associations involved in the process of building strong industrial relations can be bifurcated into the following categories. We can see the following categories. So, the primary parties are employees and the employer. Obviously, when the employees come together, they make employee association. When the employers come together, what they make? They make employer association. I hope you are getting this point. So, when the employees come together, they make employee association. When employer come together, they make employer association. So, those persons or associations which are directly associated with or influenced by the function of industrial relation are these employees. The first thing, the workers who provide their services to the organization are an essential resource and contribute to the generating the desired output. So, employee is who? Employee is basically those resources which are contributing their efforts in generating the required output, the expected output which is expected by the management to the organization. So, there are some reasons for which employee find maintaining sound industrial relations to be useful for them. Why it is required? Employees are required to share their views, their suggestions and ideas with the management to improve the business operations, becoming a part of organizational decision making and ensuring the betterment of the working conditions. So, whatever suggestions that they are giving, they have to speak out their problems, they have to speak out their grievances. Grievance is nothing but it is the feeling of dissatisfaction, seeking for the redressal of the same employee, how those dissatisfaction can be redressed. Fine. Now, coming to employers. Employers are responsible for what? They are providing a favorable work environment for the employees, in which work environment the people will be working. They have many rights and powers like laying off inefficient employees, taking strategic decisions such as mergers, acquisitions or shutdown of the organization, and adapting technological changes in the operation. So, these are the basic things that they need to understand. I hope this is clear what are the various roles that is performed by the employers. So, employers are looking after these particular things. Now, if we talk about, so there are different ways in which managers can benefit from the industrial relation in the organization. How managers get benefit? They have to time, they have to reinforce, they have to motivate the employees to give their best and gaining their trust and commitment. Fine. So, it is the requirement on the part of the management, the manager should always keep on motivating the people. Why? Because motivating, gaining trust and commitment will in turn lead to improving the overall efficiency and ensuring effective communication among the employees and the management. Fine. Second thing, dealing with the problems of trade union. Just now I have told you, when the people they come together, the employees when they come together, they make association, and this association is known as employee association. Okay. So, dealing with the problems of trade union along with the negotiation of employment terms and conditions, very important, employment terms and conditions. How they are going to do it? With such employee representative, they have to have a representative. So, there will be a trade union leader or trade union representative. These kind of representatives will be there. Fine. So, before the 19th century, the government didn't use to intervene the conflict between employer and employee. So, earlier 19th century, before 19th century, there was no role of government. Government was never used to intervene, they never used to come between the employer and employee. However, later on, as the situation is changing, the complex environment was quite dynamic. So, there was a change in the attitude of the government bodies, even there was a change in the attitude of government bodies. They started regulating the industrial relations through labor codes. This you can see here. They have come up with labor codes, tribunals. There are various reasons why these courts and tribunals, why this government came into a scenario. So, safeguarding the interest of both the parties. It is very, very important to protect and to safeguard the interest, protect the right and interest of both the parties, employer and the employee. First thing, ensuring that both the employer and the employees abide by the legal terms and conditions. Whatever the legal terms and conditions are there, they have to abide, they have to follow those legal terms and conditions. Fine. The parties, especially the internal or external bodies or association. Fine. It can be internal body, it can be external or association, as we have already discussed. So, within an organization, what they have to do? Employer association, what they do? employee association, it is an authoritative body formed to protect the interest of the industrial owner. So, to protect the right and interest of the industrial owner, if we have to protect the right of the industrial owner. So, here we talk about owner, fine. So, how we are protecting the right and interest of the owner? Then representing the owner for what? Collective bargaining. So, this we have to understand, they have to represent the owner for the collective bargaining. With whom they will going to bargain? They are going to bargain with the employees and the government. So, these are the two parties with whom they are going to bargain in case of any national issues. Creating a proper mechanism to resolve industrial disputes, giving an insight into the employee relationship in an organization, providing suggestions accordingly. So, this is what we have to understand in parties to employee relations. Okay. Same thing comes under trade unions, which is also known as employee associations. When the workers unite together to form an association and elect a representative among themselves, they have to select one representative who on the behalf of entire employees is going to represent. How they are going to represent and why they are going to represent? First thing, they have to have protection of their rights and to raise their demands in front of the management. If they have to raise their demands, if they have to raise their voices, how they will go? It will be done through employee association, fine. So, it is named as trade union. There are many things which is the function of trade union. The first is negotiating collectively with the administration for meeting individual interest of an employee. First thing that we need to understand, fine. Second, upgrading the status of the employees in the organization, how interest of the people can be upgraded. Then demanding better working conditions and higher job security for the people who are working in industry. That means job security for employees, or we can call it a worker, fine. Safeguarding the interest of the various people. Now, we need to understand, after discussing the various parties to importance of employee relation, now coming to a next topic is importance of employee relations management. Why we are talking about industrial relation, why this particular topic is very important at each level, whether it is a level at the corporate level, whether it is at the national level, and also not only these, how they are going to contribute towards the economic growth. Because there are various judiciary that is included into it, various courts, and which resolves the legitimate conflicts and the judicial review to administer the justice of the constitution. Now, coming to a first point, here we can see in importance of employee relationship. The first point is encouraging good organizational climate. Now, what is good organizational climate? Good organizational climate is wherein we are talking about eliminating the possibilities of following judicial flaws. Fine. There should be reduced conflicting judgment. There should be a participative management on the part of employer and employee. So, encouraging good organizational climate, that means you are providing such kind of environment, you are providing such kind of organization in which you are able to create a good organizational climate. Second is clear and fair policy. Why it is required? If a relationship between two parties are quite clear, fine, then automatically the decision making will be very easy. Here you have to treat employee as a valuable asset. Equitable, fair and transparent treatment of employees, all the people at different levels should be treated properly, should be treated at the same level. And last is effective communication throughout the organization. This is what we need to understand. Next is importance of employee engagement. So, companies with good employee relationship may benefit. In general, it is easier for them to engage, motivate, understand and keep their employees. We need to understand what is employee engagement. It is employee engagement is a process wherein we are not only engaging the people physically, understand this thing, but it is a psychological involvement of people. So, if the people are psychologically involved, according to research, here we can see 90% of the leaders understand how important employee engagement is. So, this concept, according to latest research, we can understand 90% of the people are saying, understanding that it is very important that if we need to increase the productivity of the people, we need to engage the people. However, only 50% of them know how to address this issue. Yes, this issue how you are going to address this issue is becoming a challenge. How, in what way you are going to involve the people. So, here employee relations plays a crucial role. It has been proven that companies with better employer communications have much higher rate of employee engagement. If the communication between employer and employees are really good, if the relationship that they are sharing is harmonious in nature, so how you are going to do it? How you are going to engage the people? We have a different tips. Share, review and update employees' expectation. Yes, time to time you have to review, you have to share, you have to update the employee expectation. You have to encourage. What we have to encourage? We have to encourage open communication to identify obstacles and issues. Very important. We have to talk about issues, we have to talk about obstacles. Fine. How you are going to address them? Encouraging discussions and sharing of thoughts. In what way you share the thoughts? Fine. Coming to next point is employee satisfaction. Now, employee satisfaction, employee engagement is many a times it is often related to employee satisfaction. Less engaged employees are less satisfied. Fine. So, according to research, we can say 65% of US employees say that communication by their employer impacts, 45 of them say that their employer does not do it. Now, coming to employee advocacy, we have to understand what is the meaning of employee advocacy. That means when the people themselves, they come forward and then they say that this is the organization where you have to work. So, based on the example, we can see highly engaged employees have an average 3-year revenue growth that is 2.3 times greater than companies with less engaged teams. So, if we have people who are more engaged, automatically in that particular case you have 2.3 times greater than the companies with less engaged teams. Employee experience, what is the experience of the people when they are working there? In that case, we have to understand how well relationship between employer and employee are able to create a good cultural environment. Last topic is employee relations management tool. Here we have to understand what are the different kind of tools that are available with the organization. Fine. So, specialized tools allow the employee relationship. First is opinion survey. You have to take the surveys from the people whether they are satisfied or not. What kind of training aids that you are providing, how you are improving the development, and last is the legal resources. So, these are the basic things: HRIS, human resource information system, and departmental expertise. So, these are the various points that you need to understand when you talk about employee relation management tools. Fine. So, these are how, in what way information system is doing a job, how you are using that particular thing, and in what way your departmental expertise is there. So, this is what we have covered in present slide. In the next lecture, we will cover the aspects of industrial relation. I hope I was able to clear all your doubts. Thank you, students.